My name is Angelina. I was 16 years old when my world changed forever. I grew up in a small, quiet town. My father owned a little shop on the corner of our street. My mother kept our home warm and full of love. My younger brother only worried about his homework. We were a simple family, but we had big hopes. I carried those hopes on my shoulders every single day. I wanted to become a doctor, not for fame, not for money. I wanted to wear that white coat and make my parents proud. They had sacrificed so much for me. Every rupee they saved, every long hour they worked, I felt it all, and I promised myself I would not let them down. But dreams come with a price. Sometimes that price is something you never expected. In our community, private tutoring was not optional. It was treated like oxygen. Parents believed that without evening classes, a child's future would simply disappear. So my parents enrolled me in the classes of a man named Mr. James. Mr. James was highly respected in our neighborhood. He had been teaching for over 20 years. Parents trusted him completely. In our culture, a teacher is like a second father. He is someone who guides not just your mind, but your character. When I first walked into his center, I held my textbooks tightly against my chest. I felt safe. I felt hopeful. The room smelled of old paper and ink. There were about 12 of us sitting in neat rows. Mr. James greeted me with a smooth, confident smile. He said he had heard great things about me. He placed me in the very front row. That small moment of praise felt like gold. I thought I had found the mentor who would help me reach my dream. The first few weeks were normal. He was a good teacher. He explained difficult topics clearly. He often complimented me in front of the class. "You have a sharp mind, Angelina," he would say. "Your family will be very proud of you one day." I loved hearing those words. They made me study harder. But slowly, something began to change. I noticed it first in his eyes. When other students spoke, he would nod and move on. But when I spoke, his stare would linger. It was long, heavy, uncomfortable. Then came the touching. Whenever I handed him my work, his fingers would brush against my hand. It was not accidental. It was deliberate, slow. He started asking me to stay after class. He called it specialized attention. He said I needed extra help with certain topics. At first, I believed him. Then the questions changed. One evening, after the other students had gone, he leaned forward and asked, "Angelina, do you have a boyfriend?" His voice was low, almost a whisper. "A girl as beautiful as you must have many admirers." He smiled, but it was not a kind smile. A cold feeling settled in my stomach. I kept my eyes on my desk. I tried to talk about the lesson. He just laughed, softly, smoothly. "You are just shy," he said. "But beauty like yours should not hide behind textbooks." Those words felt like poison. I started to dread the walk to his center. The place that once felt like an opportunity now felt like a trap. One evening, he called me to his desk after everyone had left. Every part of me wanted to run, but I was trained to respect my elders, so I stayed. He sat too close. I could feel him invading my space. Angelina, he said, his voice turning dark, you are not like the other students. I can guarantee your future, your grades, your career, everything you want. But I need something from you. I need your affection. Just trust me. I will take care of you. My heart pounded like it wanted to break through my chest. I could not speak. I could not move. I stared at the floor until he finally let me go. That night, I did not sleep. His words kept playing in my mind over and over again. I was 16. I did not know everything about the world, but I knew one thing. What he was asking for was not love. It was not care. It was a threat. It was a betrayal of everything a teacher should be. I went back the next day because I did not know what to tell my parents. They had worked so hard to pay his fees. How could I explain what was happening? I tried to stay invisible. I sat in the back corner. I avoided his eyes. But my silence made him bolder. He would lean over my shoulder while I worked. His breath was warm against my ear. You look even more beautiful when you were being quiet, he whispered. I forced a smile, but it was not a real smile. It was a mask, a survival tool born from fear. My grades began to fall. I could not focus. My mind was always somewhere else, somewhere dark. My school teachers noticed. My friends thought I was daydreaming. They had no idea I was drowning. At home, I became a ghost. I stopped eating. I stopped laughing. My mother noticed. Angelina, is everything okay? She asked one evening, her voice soft with worry. Is the work too hard? I wanted to fall into her arms and tell her everything, but fear sealed my lips. I smiled and told her I was just tired. Then came the night that changed everything. Mr. James kept me back again. Once the room was empty, he dropped all pretense. I can make you or break you, Angelina, he said quietly. Decide right now. Do you want to be a success or a failure? All I want is for you to belong to me. In that moment, something shifted inside me. The fear did not disappear, but through the fear, I found clarity. I realized that if I stayed silent, this would never stop. He would keep pushing. He would keep taking until there was nothing left of me. That night, I cried for a long time. But in the middle of my tears, I remembered something my father had told me years ago. He said, silence only makes evil grow stronger. If something is wrong, you must speak, even if your voice shakes. The next evening, after dinner, I walked into the living room. My hands were trembling. I hid them behind my back. Papa, Mama, I began. My voice cracked on those two words. I have to tell you the truth about Mr. James. And then the words came. All of them, like a dam breaking open. I told them everything. The lingering stares, the deliberate touches, the private conversations that had nothing to do with studying. The night he asked me to belong to him. The silence that followed was heavy. My father's face changed slowly. Confusion, then pain, then a deep, burning anger. My mother began to cry. not from weakness, from the ache of knowing what I had been carrying alone. My father stood up. His voice was steady but fierce. "He calls himself a teacher," he said. "He is a predator, hiding behind respect. This ends now." My mother pulled me close. Her arms held me so tightly. "Why didn't you tell us sooner?" she whispered. "We would have protected you from the very first moment. You are our daughter. We believe you. Always." The weight I had carried for months finally lifted from my chest. The next morning, we walked into the police station together. It was cold and intimidating inside, but my father's hand on my shoulder kept me steady. An officer asked me to tell my story. It was the hardest thing I had ever done, to say those words out loud, to describe how I had been made to feel small and dirty. But when I finished, the officer looked at me with genuine respect. "You are very brave," he said. "The shame is not yours. It was never yours. It belongs only to him." The investigation moved quickly. Police began questioning other students. At first, the neighborhood was shocked. People defended Mr. James. They said I was lying, that I was covering for my poor grades. Those whispers cut deep. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask them why they were protecting a predator over a child. But then, two other girls came forward. They told similar stories. They had been too afraid to speak until they saw that I had survived telling the truth. Their courage built on mine, and mine had built on my father's words. The day the police came to arrest Mr. James, I watched from a distance. I watched the man who had tried to steal my future being led away in handcuffs. I felt no joy, only a deep, quiet relief. The mask of respectability had finally been torn away. The trial was long and painful. Lawyers tried to twist my words. They asked me what I was wearing the day it happened. They asked if I had encouraged him. They tried to make a 16-year-old girl seem responsible for a grown man's choices. Every session tested me. Every session made me want to break. But I would look at my parents. My father never missed a single hearing. My mother sat quietly in the back, her hands folded in prayer. Their presence was my anchor. Their love was my strength. Finally, the judge delivered the verdict. Mr. James was found guilty. He was sentenced to prison. The judge said something I will never forget. He said, "A teacher who exploits a student's trust has committed a crime against the very heart of our society. Trust is sacred. He destroyed it." When I heard those words, I stopped feeling like a victim. I felt like a survivor. Healing was not quick. For a long time, nightmares woke me up at night. I had to learn how to trust people again. There were days I wanted to give up on becoming a doctor. I felt too broken to help others. But my father would not let me sink. He sat beside me one night and said, "He tried to take your dignity, Angelina. He failed. Do not let him take your future too. A doctor who understands pain is a better doctor than one who has never known it." I held those words close to my heart. I went back to my books, not out of fear, not to impress anyone, but to reclaim my own life. I realized that my education was not just about exams. It was about building a version of myself that no one could ever take away. To anyone listening to this story, I want to say something important. Silence is the predator's greatest weapon. They count on your shame. They count on your fear. They count on your desire to protect your family from embarrassment. But real honor does not come from hiding the truth. It comes from standing up for what is right. To every parent, when your child becomes quiet, when their grades drop suddenly, when they stop wanting to go somewhere they once loved, pay attention. Ask again and again, because sometimes a child needs to be asked more than once before they feel safe enough to speak. To every student, what was done to you is not your fault. Your worth is not defined by what someone tried to take from you. You have a voice, and that voice has the power to save your life and the lives of others. I am no longer the girl who walked into that classroom clutching her books in fear. I am a woman who knows her worth. I am still on my way to becoming a doctor. The scars are real, but they are not marks of shame. They are proof that I survived. My name is Angelina, and I am no longer afraid. Thanks for listening to my story. If you liked it, hit that subscribe button, drop a comment, and tell me where you're listening from.